2025, a trend that the courageous will embrace more is that you do have a message. People can, find you and they are interested in what it is you have to say.
Welcome to the Red, Green, Blue podcast.
Okay, welcome to the podcast. We're going to be speaking with Brady Edwards, who runs Biggest Agency, which you can find on Instagram. And he also was the video director for MrBeast, which if you're over an age, you're and you don't have children, MrBeast has how many followers? Like 110 million more?
No, it's currently exceeded the population of the United States. They're 344 million subscribers.
344 million subscribers to MrBeast. He's by far the biggest influencer, and he even has like a huge game show on like Amazon Prime or something.
Beast Games just came out.
It just came out. So this is, so in a way, this is kind of, I think we're still kind of focused on like the big studios and the content they make, but MrBeast he is his own Nickelodeon, essentially. Mm-hmm. Because he really draws on the demographic kind of 14 to 16-year-old guys, right? A lot.
Yeah, preeminently, right?
Preeminently.
But it's everybody else.
Everyone else too. I've seen his videos,
Yeah.
And they're fun, they're interesting, but he's essentially his own media company, which is just astonishing in this day and age. Because you think about it, even like Tom Cruise never pulled that off.
No.
They're always were dependent on other people, but he's the star, he's the producer, he's the channel, he's everything. And that's the interesting thing. And so we're going to hear some stories about what it's like to work with MrBeast. It's really the center of new media. The absolute center. So 340 million, 350 million.
It's not, and you combine like his Instagram following, Twitter following, TikTok. I think it's over 600 million. Right. I'm sure there's a lot of the same people, right? A couple double numbers in there. But yeah, basically the most followed person on the planet.
Well, maybe he's going to run for president. Jeez.
He does make jokes about it.
He does? He jokes about it? Yeah. Oh my goodness. Then there's a possibility. If people joke about it, there's some truth in the joke.
Yeah, he said if they could lower the age, he would consider running sooner, which just went nuts on Twitter.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. He's going to roll into Pennsylvania and be like, I'm going to buy every steel mill in Pennsylvania. Watch me do it. And he's like,
scoop up all the swing states.
Yeah. He's like, I now own all the steel mills in Pennsylvania. Everybody gets free steel.
I reinvigorated the car industry in Detroit.
All by myself. Yeah. That's right. I'm going to buy all the cars in Detroit. That's the thing he does. He goes into like a car dealership and then he'll buy all the cars. He'll go to Walmart, buy everything in Walmart. And it's fun to watch. To me, it's interesting, like as a entrepreneur, to see how much inventory is actually in a store.
Oh yeah.
Like when he exits the store, I was okay, we spent $80,000. I was like, there's $80,000 of inventory in that store.
That was one of the videos that I helped direct was we'd bought everything in 5 stores, which is like, on its face, that's kind of fun. But then the logistics behind it, you're like, hey, so how much inventory is in a store? And then by the way, how many trucks do you need to empty out that store? And then BT Dubs, there are 4 more stores we have to do. We're going to try and do it in 2 days. And that was fun to kind of plan because there's a lot of time lapses. And so you have to go, okay, great. Well, let's place cameras here and there. And then there's these organic moments. That was kind of my job, was to go, okay, creative has come up with this idea. Jimmy gave it its blessing and we're super clear on the vision. Okay, great. How do we capture that? And we're all here in person.
Oh, so Jimmy, who comes up with the idea?
So Jimmy, he started the channel in 2011.
Yeah.
And so he's always been.
Oh, Jimmy is MrBeast.
Jimmy is MrBeast. Yeah. And so he's been the only person for 8 years. He was just grinding it solo. It used to be a Call of Duty channel. No one knows this because they took all the videos down. It used to be like a gun testing channel for a short season.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, someone inside the company.
He do like endurance videos too, right? Like, I can't remember.
Yeah, like kind of self-torture videos.
Yeah, self-torture.
Count to 100,000.
Yeah, count
say
to 100,000.
Logan Paul 100,000 times. Like obscure things. And the underpinning behind that decision was no one's done it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I can do something, and it's not fun to watch, but it's crazy to see that someone did it. And that was kind of, so then we'd bury him alive for 50 hours, under 30 tons of dirt.
That is torture.
That one, I don't know how in the world he did it. We would put him in the coffin and just test him for an hour. Like, hey man, you should get kind of familiar with can you do this? And it was uncomfortable. And after an hour, he'd be like, okay, yeah, no, I think I can do it.
Oh God.
I'd get in there for 5 minutes. And my people on my team would make a joke and put something heavy on the lid. And I'd freak out. I was like, I need out of this coffin. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it for 50 hours. No big. And then after I left, he ended up doing it for 7 days.
7 days.
Same concept. And now instead of 50 hours, it was 7 days.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, just a madman. And so those sorts of things, people like the spectacle of it. And so I would say if people haven't heard of the channel, it orbits somewhere between spectacle, stunts, performance, just larger than life, and then philanthropy. So we call it spectacle philanthropy.
Oh, really?
Because the whole premise of it is trying to give back to people in some way, shape, or form. It's all real, by the way. Like those aren't stunts or scenarios where people are like talked into pretending that they got this money. It's all real.
Yeah.
And the reason is because Jimmy got such joy out of seeing somebody light up. There was this story, I think in 2017 or 2018, it was really the first brand deal that he'd got. And they were going to give him $5,000. And they're like, do $5,000, shout out our company. And he pushes back and he goes, well, no, why don't you give me 10? And they're like, at that time, there really wasn't like a clear indication as to what the value of a brand deal could be, right?
Yeah.
That market's kind of leveled out. Now we have case studies to kind of approximate, a brand should pay about this much if the following or but at the time there really wasn't any. So they go, why should we give you $10,000?
Oh, geez, $10,000 is a bargain for that much.
But at the time, he wasn't a big channel.
Yeah.
And so they're like, what's the point? And he goes, well, he's like, I'm going to take that money and I'm just going to give it to a homeless person. And they're like, no, you're not. You're going to keep most of it. We're not idiots. And he goes, really, that's not my game. I promise you, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so they go, well, why $10,000? And he goes, because the number's going to look cooler in the title. Because something about that 5-digit look is going to look better than $5,000. So it was this subtle thing. And now that's very obvious because he's done it 100 times.
Yeah.
And there's 1,000 channels that have spun off the same psychological understanding. But at the time, that was really undiscovered. And so he goes, no, I really think there's something to having 5 figures in the title. So give me the money, I'll do it. And he did.
Well, also it makes it like a game show.
Yeah.
It's like, you think like Jeopardy, they often win $10,000, $20,000 by the end of the show. But he's kind of like, hey, I'm a game show and you just won. And so you get the great game show reaction and all that.
Here you go, homeless guy.
Here you go, homeless. Yeah, crazy. No. Well, one he did, I saw, he was an Uber driver in a Lamborghini and then he'd give them the Lamborghini after the drive.
That was also one of my videos.
Was that?
That one was a logistical nightmare because it was raining for almost all of it. So, I mean, it's because a lot of people that watch this probably appreciate the actual logistics that go behind cameras and everything else.
Yeah.
Right. So picture the scene. We rented a small parking lot. We got, I think it was 12 or 13 cars. I had to rig them up so that I had a shot of Jimmy. I had a shot of whoever's in the passenger seat. I had multiple angles of the people in the back. But the caveat is they don't know that they're being recorded. So every single car, and they're all configured differently, we had to have hidden cameras inside each one of those. But we only had so much audio equipment. So we would basically get one car. I'd stick like a gym bag in the back passenger seat, and I'd have GoPros poking out both sides, kind of tilted up, kind of get them so I can get this hidden camera look on the people riding in the car.
Yeah.
You worried about the camera?
No, I was just checking the angle. Yeah, it's
good.
Fine.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. That'll go.
Yeah.
So I hide these cameras inside the headrest of the car, or I try and like hide it in the side door. And I get all the hidden camera footage. But then once the car's gone, we have to strip out all of the cameras. And we really only had 2 sets of audio equipment. So we had one car that was getting set up, one that was actually in the field with the passenger that was getting pranked and then gets the car for free.
Yeah.
And then the second that was done, we had to rip all of it out the second we were done filming.
Because you don't want to give them all your gear.
Yeah, I'm not trying to give them audio equipment we rented.
Yeah.
And we have to rip all of it out, run back to the parking lot and start outfitting the next car. And the goal was to try and do like 13 cars in a day.
Oh, geez.
And then
in a day. Filming, that is hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like different people. Some people are going like 30 miles away. And so we signed up as legit Uber drivers. We had all of our talent, dressed up in costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was just this frenzied swap of like, okay, we get to the next car and we're like, we had a soft plan as to how we were going to configure each car for cameras and audio. But then we get there and we're like, oh no, that's not going to work. Guys, we have 20 minutes. And so it's just all day running. We're like, okay, reconfigure this, try and do this. We're cutting this thing out of the side door of the car, trying to hide cameras in it. And, but the finale was amazing. We had this old Lamborghini and Jimmy drove it. And the cat was out of the bag almost immediately. The kid recognized.
They knew who he was. He's getting too famous to do this.
Oh yeah, at this point he can't go anywhere without a pretty serious security detail.
Oh really?
It was close. Detail. It was like that when I was getting ready to leave. But it would just be like 1 or 2 guys, and now it's a lot.
Well, he's on the homepage of Amazon, so I mean, even then. So I think he's broken through to like just being a global celebrity rather than just being. He's like Oprah.
He shut down India. Like he
really
huge fan base in India. India loves American content. And the big battle between MrBeast and T-Series, that was like this kind of iconic moment because T-Series is a YouTube channel for the country of India.
Oh, really?
It's like their channel. Like they don't really have.
Is it like government run or
probably?
Is it
I don't know if it is, but
maybe like behind the scenes.
Yeah, in some way it probably is. But they post 70 videos a day or something, and they have all these playlists, and so it's kind of like TV.
Oh yeah,
and you have the entire population of India as the subscriber base. There's no one going to beat. That's the biggest channel in the world. And then Beast beat it. It was PewDiePie at first. It's all this lore behind it.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was a crazy time.
Really interesting. Wow. So, what other? I mean, do you have any other great stories of video production?
I mean, burying Jimmy alive was probably the most stressful thing.
Well, honestly, that's scary because that's dangerous.
Well, if he dies, I don't get paid.
Yeah, like if the ventilation goes out. I mean, again, Tom Cruise may do his own stunts, but I mean, this is really, I mean, burying yourself. I mean, the ventilation chamber quits working for 7 minutes. He's dead.
And we had redundancies built in place for that reason. Like I worked with the most incredible set of teams. So it's like we all had very specific roles, but we all had overlap, and we go, hey, I'm filming it this way. How does this impact the ventilator, the HVAC? What redundancies do we have in case Jimmy freaks out and we have to get 30 tons of dirt off the ground?
So he's buried deep.
Yeah. Well,
like how fast can you get him out?
Yeah. Yeah. It was scary because it's, we all care about him.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's anyone in the world that loves the channel more than the people that work there. Yeah. Because we would basically kill ourselves for every single video, working 15-hour days, sometimes 18, and we go home, sleep for 3 hours, and we're right back at it. It was really like living a military schedule.
Well, I mean, he kind of portrays, it kind of looks like a fraternity in a way.
On the inner circle,
in the circle, yeah.
Yeah, but it's different now. The company's, in the last 2.5 years, it's 10x'd in size.
Yeah.
So when I was there, it was about 20 million subscribers. And then when I left, we were about 75, 80 million. And that was over the course of about 2 years. The next year, they did 100 million subscribers.
100 million.
And then the year after that was like 180 million.
They went increased by
so the hockey stick moment was just bananas. So the company is completely unrecognizable to how it was when I was just there a couple of years ago.
Jeez.
And so the scale, the logistics, the budgets, I think my biggest budget was close to $1 million. And now that's not
which is still huge.
Which is nuts, But now it's like, it's just astronomical. And then, Beast Games was well over $100 million.
So that's more than a major feature film like Spider-Man would cost around that. I mean, that's a lot of money. Jeez.
You probably saw that footage where they had a row of all the area mirrors. They rented like 90 of them.
90?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was a viral clip. All of like the camera Instagram pages had this one shot that Jimmy went down the row, and they had 90. I think they were Amiras, and maybe they might have been the Alexas. But it was just the craziest thing you've ever seen. All of these areas in a row, as far as this warehouse goes, just nice tripods.
Amazing.
Fully kitted out. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
I would not want to run that show.
Oh gosh. I mean,
a nightmare.
No, I mean, again, and that's the thing about video production is like, I mean, there's like the idea and then there's the logistics of executing the idea. I mean, especially since we're in a world of spectacle and it's all about being big, and extreme. So the logistics are big and extreme.
Yeah.
When it's not CGI. And maybe that's part of the appeal to it. It's that like we've just had so many CGI stunts and Hollywood has been chasing these kind of artificial CGI effects that he's like doing real stunts and it's real risk rather than, Tom Holland in a CGI suit. I don't know.
Very evidently on a big blue screen.
Yeah. Very evidently on a big blue screen. And it's so fantastical that literally nobody has ever moved that way in any human. It's not humanly possible to do that.
You look at Hook. Like Hook is one of my favorite films of all time. Captivated me as a child.
Yeah, the one with Robin Williams.
Yeah. Real sets. And that movie just had you look at Home Alone. Like it's just, there's something, I mean, granted, most of that's taking place in a house, but there's just the tangibility of it that I think most movies now, they do rely so heavily on the VFX department, and their deadlines are so short that the blending of it, the compositing is like, they're going to do a good job, but if they had call it another year, it would be better. And then there's there's movies that are so VFX heavy from a decade and a half ago that still hold up today because they had all the time in the world because they're like, this is really hard. And now, the turnaround time on these films are just crazy. So VFX teams are just rushing through it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody has a hard job and I respect everybody's job. But I do think like what you're seeing like is for the past 20 years, there's been a lot of controlled media. And what people like about YouTube and podcasters and people like MrBeast is authenticity. Or maybe that's just perceived authenticity, but like it's real. When Joe Rogan, think about Joe Rogan, he's got millions of subscribers, probably huge budgets, but you think his set would look like the Today Show. but it's not.
It's
it kind of
chill.
looks like a closet. And like they're uncomfortably close to each other, you know, and he keeps it that way, even though there's all the money in the world to kind of amp up the production value. But it's like it keeps it real, it keeps it authentic. And so you keep it minimal.
Yeah.
You know,
I told you before we started, I was speaking at Silicon Slopes, and a point that I made, it's something I'll bring up quite a bit with clients that I have, is why people are turned off almost by a high production value.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on the show, but what we would call it there at the channel was we'd call it the shitty factor. And so there's something about, we would go and buy iPhone 7s off of eBay before we would film like a reel or like a TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because like at the time, iPhone 11, iPhone 12, and he's like, no, get an iPhone 7. And we're like, why? Why would you? And he goes, because it's going to be more authentic. Because if there's too much resolution, or the color science is too good, we have this filter that we've all built up. We're all inoculated to how many ads we're getting.
Yeah.
And if it's filmed on a red and the color grading's amazing, then you know almost instinctively that's an ad. The end goal is to try and sell me something. Everybody's trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
And so when there's an authenticity to it, like the dog ran out into the snow, got mud, ran into the house, you happen to film it. Maybe the kid ran out and there's just this funny moment. There's just something raw and organic about it. And we resonate with that more. It passes our filter because we're like, thank goodness, because everybody else is pushing the ads.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I've even noticed that's a trend in advertising. Like you'll just be like, kind of looks like an iPhone set up on a tripod, and you're going through and there's some woman, she's like, boy, my dog really has gas, and this is how I solve it. And then you look at them like, oh, that's an ad.
Yeah.
Like you just think it's like your friend telling you that their dog has gas.
You feel duped almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
We'll catch on and it'll stop working.
And then it'll be AI. And you'll never know.
And it'll be AI. Well, honestly, I think AI is going to amplify the need for authenticity. I think people really don't like being lied to. And I mean, I do think like that kind of happened with Hollywood. Like I think a lot of people thought they were seeing reality, like they were seeing the real Nicole Kidman and so on. And the curtain opened up a bit, or maybe the most extreme, Will Smith, who ended his career in 10 minutes, 10 seconds.
With the slap?
With the slap, yeah. Like that is like the most amazing thing in cinema history almost. You have like the biggest star in the world, or, you know, him and Tom Cruise, debatable, but
arguably top three.
Definitely top three. In the biggest moment of his whole life, his whole career, biggest night, and he destroys it in 10 seconds. I mean, that's like unparalleled.
You don't think it was staged?
Oh, no. Do you? Well, there's authenticity. I mean, it hurt all of Hollywood, though. I mean, it really did. I think if everybody who is involved in that whole industry would just rather it never happened, because it destroyed their only bankable star, one of their few remaining.
I mean, maybe he was on the way out. Anytime there's a movie with The Rock, as an example, he's in everything. And so I'm like, oh, another movie with like The Rock and Ryan Reynolds. I'm probably not going to see it. And I love Ryan Reynolds, but it's just kind of this lather, rinse, repeat. Like Red One's a great example of that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's a cash grab. It feels like it was low effort.
Yeah.
I helped on the back, behind the scenes on a lot of big YouTube channels, not MrBeast, everything there is real, but on other ones I worked at Tanner Fox, and we collaborated with a lot of other channels. A lot of the stuff that people would see that would be these like YouTube drama moments, they were all staged and or choreographed. Yeah. The whole goal was to try and drum up buzz, to upset somebody, because people think, oh, this creator and that creator have a beef. It was like Eminem and MGK when they had this like beef and they're doing like rap songs back and forth.
Yeah.
All of that was marketing. It was coordinated.
Yeah. Well, and again, that goes for the authenticity. Like it's like, and that in fact, we'd question, you know, whether or not Will Smith actually slapped, if it was not staged or, you know, he's misled. But the one thing that makes me fundamentally think it wasn't staged, the way movies are financed is you get a script, you get an actor, you get a director, and then you go to a bank. I mean, like an actual bank, and you go, we've got Will Smith in it. His movies have this track record. Will you lend us money for a year? Will you lend us $80 million for a year before we release it? And we'll pay you this interest. And so literally Will Smith was a bankable star. He was the way they raised money for films. And that's why movies like the one he won the Academy Award for, what was it called? The Serena Williams sisters. Anyway, I can't, Kings.
Jamie, pull it up.
Anyway, there we go. Anyway, I'm freezing on the name. But only movies like that could be made with Will Smith, because only a movie about inner city two inner city teenage girls becoming tennis champions would be bankable with Will Smith. And we haven't seen those movies since. So it really, they want to preserve these people's reputations and they want to build them up, but they can't do that anymore.
Interesting.
Because we have this unfiltered. And honestly, even if the slap had just occurred on the Academy Awards, not everybody watches the Academy Awards. It would have been in magazines, but it could have died. But the fact we could go to the internet and everybody could go back and see it, it just never died. Like moments like that just live forever. So
keep my wife's name out of your mouth.
Oh gosh, geez. Anyway, I want somebody to do like a full in-depth documentary on that. I think that'd be really, really interesting. Kind of like what led up to me, what it is. I mean, when people, you know, and you see this like with road rage incidents and stuff, it wasn't the incident that set him off. It wasn't the Chris Rock's joke. It was his anxiety, his neuroticism, things in his life were just building up. And like, that was the thing that just pushed it over. It wasn't, it's like, why would that little joke send him over that? Just like, no, it's just everything was building up in him. And that's just the moment it came out at. It was a really bad moment.
The skeptic in me says, well, there could have been competing interests. If there is somebody that has a greater view on it, like you're saying, where Will Smith is how you get the bank to write you the check, but he's got some scrappy PR person, you know, or some like person that's trying to do something cutting edge, and he doesn't see actually the bigger picture. He's just saying, oh, this is going to get us a viral moment. We're looking for clicks here, not understanding the long tail effects of something stupid like that.
Well, clearly, I mean, the way he handled it afterward, you know, and stuff, people around him and stuff, he and people around him weren't communicating to him how bad this was. I mean, they weren't. Like, if he did, he should have come out and apologized immediately, like the day after, just like bawling, you know, but that didn't happen. Anyway, so moving on, celebrity gossip. This is now the celebrity gossip channel.
We're TMZ, baby.
Yeah, right on. But so anyway, there is some authenticity about MrBeast. There's authenticity about YouTube. So what do you think is going to happen with YouTube in 2025? And just as of the time of the recording, TikTok is threatening to shut down tomorrow, which would be huge earthquake in social media. Yeah,
cataclysmic, really. Yeah. And there's a lot of talk of people trying to pull together a fund to make it happen. I think there's a chance that they stall it. Trying to understand what is going to happen next is like wearing kaleidoscope glasses and trying to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have some sense of it, but there are so many different inputs happening at the same time that your best bet is to really just look at the playing field, see where the headwinds are. And then if something does seem to be emergent as either a trend or in a bigger sense, like there's just kind of there's a bigger theme emerging, then that is where you want to start vectoring. And then over time, it may actually become more clear. I'll give you an example. In 2015, 2016, 2017, that was like the peak vlog era. In 2018, 2019 a bit.
Yeah.
And so for really 4 or 5 years, the idea of put on the selfie camera, right? We've got these Sonys and you just have yourself filming whatever it is you're doing all day and then try and plan your day in an interesting way so that people just get to live vicariously through you. And if you're someone like Logan Paul, no, you've got money. So you're doing something interesting. You've got a high-rise loft and you've got cool friends. Yeah. And so now I get to vicariously enjoy your life for 20 minutes. And there was a clear trend and then it declined. And then it became really like Beast kind of grabbed the next corner of that internet phenomenon while all these other like micro trends were happening. I mean, people love sitting down, and there's a whole segment of the population that don't eat food unless they're watching other people on YouTube eat food.
Yeah.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. It's a huge industry.
I bet.
And especially in like Asian markets, like they love being able to just sit down and put on a video of somebody else eating a different meal, but the same meal, and they like eating with somebody. A lot of people that, you know, don't have somebody to eat with every night, that's a big part of what they do.
So it makes them feel less lonely.
Yeah, 100%. So it's like these videos are going to exist, you know, in proximity to the bigger trends that will ultimately have these tectonic shifts across the platform. But the big ones I would say were things like vlogging, letting people into your life and getting to follow along your story or like your little dramas and stuff, because that gives them something to look forward to. Their life is more exciting than mine. I'm outsourcing my life's joy to this creator for like 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Then it became kind of more spectacle stunts. And so Beast really did take up the lion's share of that attention by doing things like the last to leave challenges. So that was one of the big things that put the channel in the front center of the global YouTube community. It was like, okay, I'm going to paint a circle on the ground. I'm going to put 10 people in it. And the last one to leave gets $50,000. What's going to happen? I'm going to do the same thing. Last one to put your hand on the Lamborghini and then keep it on there longest. You win the Lamborghini. What's going to happen? And so these last to leave challenges were these explorations of the smaller moments.
Yeah.
And so therein is where you're finding the authenticity, because it's a grind. And man, those challenges were brutal too. We had one and it performed pretty well. I think it was just the way that we named it. But we had Jimmy's 100 million, no, it was a million, one of his subscriber plaques from YouTube.
Yeah.
And we had 4 small creators, and they put their hand on the plaque. And the last one to leave gets a huge shout out to their channel. And it's almost like a guaranteed million subscribers. And the guy that won, he got probably like 2.5 million. It was just bonkers. But like the grind of it was like so intimate, and people like watching that. But those challenges would go for 30, 40 hours sometimes. People are, it changed it now, but people would have, like a rough time navigating the bathroom situation, or some of them had medications. So actually filming those, people have not been willing to do that, because the actual cost of accomplishing that video truly was something most people were not willing to pay the price and do.
They weren't willing to pee their pants on camera.
Yeah. Or like get friends to volunteer their mental well-being to do that.
Yeah.
One creator, his name's Ryan Trahan. He did this thing where he took a penny, and I think he started in California, and he basically traded up. And so he said, hey, can you trade me this penny for whatever it is you've got on your person? Now he's got a slightly more valuable thing. And he did that. And I didn't watch all of it, but he managed to get from California all the way to North Carolina, where MrBeast was. And they had this big finale set up, and he would vlog every single day, his journey by foot, going across the United States, trading up and surviving off of what started as a penny. And so would you want to do that?
No,
I wouldn't want to do that. That sounds horrible.
It's a lot of dedication.
But I mean, every video he would drop, he was doing almost a daily vlog. And after, call it the first 6 or 10, people caught on to, hey, this thing's happening, right? And then a new video is coming out tomorrow. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And every video started getting 10 million views on like almost a brand new channel. And so there are these moments where you can kind of perceive somebody is doing something that is so uncomfortable, so daring and outrageous, that there's an opportunity to spin off of it. I think looking ahead at 2025, to answer your question, some things we're going to use as beacons are when AI takes a stronger presence and it stops artifacting and it starts really looking convincing. And right now it's really pretty bad. Like video generation, even from Sora, top leading models, for the most part, they fall apart, right?
More than that, I mean, but at the same time, I saw a video yesterday. It was a blue whale covered with barnacles being helped by a girl, totally fake looking, whale's way too small, skin, everything's wrong. And I looked at the comments, and 50% of the comments were, thank you, girl, for helping this whale. And I was like, no way. I mean, the barnacles don't right. The world, the shifts, it morphs weird. It's totally fake looking. But half the comments believed that it was a real moment.
My mom last night, she's sitting on the couch. I just got home from Silicon Slopes. She's on Facebook, and she goes, oh, you guys are not going to believe this. Michelle Obama is divorcing Barack Obama, and Barack Obama is going to be joining Trump's team.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? And she's like, no, really, look. And there was just some video of some random dude, and he was just making up something, and he had some AI generated images. He had one clip of Jimmy Carter's, funeral where Trump and Obama were for sure chatting it up. And then some guy narrates it and injects, and my mom bought it. And I think what that is a case study.
Because it looks like a news program.
Yeah, that seems pretty legit. The guy's got a nice sounding microphone, and he's got this authoritative present. That guy doesn't know anything.
Well, more than that, he knows that it's wrong, and he's doing it just to make up something to get clicks.
So I don't know how that gets adjudicated, because there are going to be 50% of people thinking that some girl can breathe underwater for 10 minutes and scrub barnacles off of a miniature whale. It's going to be difficult to navigate for sure. And even when it's that bad, and we have the eyes to see, probably most of your audience does, we can spot it from a mile away. Yeah. But there is an older generation, not to, be ageist, but I would imagine they're less native to it. Yeah. And so they are going to probably get duped quite a bit.
Yeah. Hopefully short term. I mean, I hope we get, we can figure it out, and, again. So, oh boy, but yeah, it is disturbing, because if you thought that whale video was real, you'd think literally any video was real, because it wasn't even clever, and I mean, it wasn't even well done in any capacity. So
to answer your initial question, as
2025,
I think knowing that AI is going to piss all of us off because it's going to look like that, we're going to crave the one thing that AI doesn't provide, which is a human touch.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so what we're noticing in a bigger trend, and it's like, oh, everybody is doing chair related challenges or something, right? That's not the trend I'm referring to. What I am referring to is kind of reversion to the mean, which is we as a species thrive in storytelling. We painted them on the walls, we carved them into stone, and we passed on the legacy of our generation, our learnings in the format of story, whether it was written or spoken. And there's something about, if I try and teach you a principle, like let's say you're trying to teach somebody the difference between f-stop and shutter speed and ISO. If you do it in this really clear, here are the facts, ... then there is this understanding of it, maybe a conceptual understanding if they're like a quick learner. If you do it in the context of a story, somebody's going to internalize it so much better. It was why I never really thrived in math. It was so binary. It didn't really click with me. Yeah. But I could read and write for days because I had this inventive mind. And so anything that was told in story format, I just ingested it so much better. It's why we can hear a song 25 years later and know all the lyrics. Oh yeah. Because there's something about the way that encodes into our brain, into our long-term memory that resonates with us. And I think a more deep human species level. And so AI is not going to be able to accomplish that. Maybe one day, I don't know, it's early days here, but I think a reversion to the mean of people, even if their life isn't remarkable and they're not skydiving off of the World Trade Center, they're if they can tell a good story about something that's kind of dumb, TikTok has kind of proven that, for however long it lasts. Yeah. People will sit in their living room and rant about something, but they'll have a funny delivery, or they just look funny, or they have this like laugh that people love. And there's something about developing just a one-sided human best friendship with a complete stranger. And if you can tap into that, you are going to understand something that almost everybody else doesn't. And instead they're going to compensate. And where are they compensating? Oh, well, I can film that in 8K. I can, add 100 AI effects and I can change his jacket 100 times in 3 seconds. And it's like, dude, but that didn't move the needle for me emotionally. I was just like, huh, cool. It was novel.
No. And again, I think and that's actually something I think is interesting about influencer culture and marketing and creation is that the person needs to have that authenticity. Like Jimmy, MrBeast, he's got something where you feel like you can know him and that he's being real with you and stuff. And very few people have that. And I don't know. It's like, I don't believe you can teach somebody to become like a great actor, but it's hard to teach somebody to be authentic, because I think part of it is like people don't want to be authentic with themselves. We have a tendency to put up a persona, like we have at work or something, because we don't want to like really look at our dark selves in a way. Well said. Yeah. But somebody who can be authentic has done that and even maybe fought some demons and come out on the other side, or even if they're being authentically bombastic, or arrogant, that still seems like more legit. Like
Jake Paul.
Yeah. That's 100% true. People are like, well, he's authentically arrogant, but he knows it and he's just doing it, Totally. So, but he's aware of it. Whereas like people, a lot of times they're just like, well, I'm not being arrogant. I'm just really the best person ever. Sincerely, gosh, I'm not like overstating this. So that's another thing. And you see that blind spot a lot with like traditional celebrities. Yeah. Because they have everyone around them telling them there's great and stuff. And they kind of just forget like, oh, wait a minute. I'm kind of a clown, aren't I?
Well, there's only the best edits of like my maximized performative moments are actually seen by people. And so there is this perception that they hold.
Yeah. And the best writers are putting words in my mouth. And
I didn't even write these things.
And I think that's like behind the camera people, like we work really hard to make them look good. And they get all the credit for it. So like you never see the cinematographer ever be mobbed on the red carpet. Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's like, you have no idea how hard I made it look good. Yeah. Exactly. How hard I worked.
Yeah. Like it was really, really hard to make this whole movie look good.
You bring up an interesting point about, Jimmy, MrBeast and the authenticity thing. Yeah. So when he started the channel, it was probably the first 1,000 subscribers. And this is advice that I give to a lot of my clients is you need to get to know every subscriber. And a lot of them are they'll be shell accounts or fake or whatever. But there are people behind those pages. And so he would memorize the names. He would shout them out in the next video he would do.
Are you serious? When new subscribers came on?
100%. Amazing. He knew all their names. He would make a reference to them in the video. And so he would just garner this little community. And he did it in the way that like Twitch streamers do it. You tap into somebody feeling seen for a moment, right? Exactly. The spotlight swept over them and they felt seen and validated.
And then he becomes their boy kind of thing.
And now they're in, they want to see him grow. There's nothing cooler than being to a channel early and then watching it blow up. It's like why people are like, oh, I knew that band before it was cool, right? There is something about that. Then in the last couple of years, there have been like criticisms levied against the Beast channel where it's like, hey, you've kind of become the master of shows, like kind of like a showman. I'm presenting this big grand thing, and now it no longer feels like a person. You're just the master of ceremonies. And so they've reverted back to, after that feedback, and the video still performed. They all got 200 million views. But the connection, sometimes it was like, hey, this is a bit too much. It's like too performative, too bombastic. And so they started getting better at storytelling, and they would allow longer scenes to happen between the main cast of, they call them the boys, right? Their interactions, them being friends and goofing. Whereas before, it would end up on the cutting room floor because they're like, that's not the plot. We're trying to send this monster truck through the side of a train. We got to keep this thing moving. Yeah. But really, it's like, yeah, okay, that was like a cool stunt. I've seen that in Fast and Furious 5 times. Yeah. What I really liked was the interactions between the friends, because there's this symbiotic feeling that I get watching some people that I know and their friends, and there's clearly rapport between them. Yeah. And I get to enjoy that earnestness. So like people like to watch rapport, like real rapport. That's why like a really good love story in a movie is when the two actors are able to really pull that off. You're like, gosh, that really did something for me.
Excellent chemistry.
Excellent chemistry. And when they have that, there's something that it's really hard to replicate. I don't care, how many helicopters you shoot with a missile. Like, it's cool, but it doesn't give you that huge, you're like, oh, helicopter. But like, there's a people connection thing going on. And so one of my favorite podcasts is the All In podcast. I was listening to it on the drive here. Yeah. And my employees, everyone on my team knows on Friday, when that podcast drops, I'm unavailable. No one talk to me, because it's 4 billionaires. Now, 2 of them are billionaires, 2 of them are almost billionaires, and they are best friends, gambling degenerates. They've known each other for 20 years. One of them hops between their houses and will just live in them for a while, get on one of their private planes, steal all the soaps. There's all these like funny little moments, but what they do is they take a macro picture at U.S. foreign policy, the Ukraine war, that they're talking a lot about the fires right now because they're all Silicon Valley billionaires. Yeah. And I love this podcast because they are best friends and they will bust each other up. And they will dunk on each other. They laugh. They have these inside jokes, but then it's packaged in well-researched information. And so for me, if I had to guess, circling back to answering the original question, it is someone doing the legwork for you, the viewer. Yeah. I had this well-researched, well-thought-out consideration. And ideally, I had friends that you kind of one-sidedly fell in love with. You fell in love with our friend group. That's been a proven model. Yeah. But I think people are craving information. After COVID, people felt like they weren't getting really adequate or accurate information. And so there's been a lot of mainstream media has been subverted in a big way. MSNBC, CNN, even Fox News, they're all down. What is up is podcasts, because people feel like they can get it from the horse's mouth, and you can get a good sense of the character of the person if you're listening to them for 1, 2, 3 hours. Exactly. It's hard to fake who you are after a while.
No, fatigue. That's what I say. People like I coming from documentary film and documentary photography, like people are really poor actors. Like they'll put up an act for like 10 minutes. You're like, you point a camera at them, but then they just can't do it. And so in a podcast, you have the time to do it. Whereas like, I mean, in past with broadcast media, like, all right, you're on half an hour, and they're on for half an hour, and they're that person, like Ellen DeGeneres, and then they're off, and then they're no longer that person. But if it was like 12 hours with Ellen DeGeneres, she couldn't do it.
She'd fall apart.
She'd be like, you're terrible.
I had a friend that I worked with at production. She worked in production at Ellen DeGeneres, and she would tell us horror stories.
Oh, really? Do you have any?
Well, one of them was that the policy was, if you work there behind the scenes, no one is allowed to look at Ellen DeGeneres. So when she would walk down the hall to either her green room or to the set, if you're in the hall, if you're running around, put your head down.
Oh, geez. To me, that'd be more awkward, like everyone putting their head down as I walk by.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
What it came down to, because I've spent my life, I was a child actor in Disney and Nickelodeon. Yeah. And so I had that proximity, and then being behind the scenes behind camera for, about a decade in different capacities. Mm-hmm. When I work with famous people, what I notice is that over time, everybody wants to be famous because they want to outsource their internal validation. If somebody comes up to you and says, oh my gosh, I've seen your videos, I love you, then you didn't have to do a single thing internally to face your darkness, as you said, exactly, your shadows. Yeah. It's outsourced. Everybody else is giving it to you. You got an unlimited supply of love, and you don't have to do anything for it. And people like that. Yeah. But if you, after a while, you get used to it, if it's the norm, you kind of feel like you can't escape people. You feel like everywhere you go, you're being watched because people recognize you. And what it feels like is people are always staring at you. Yeah. And this is like this is a nuanced thing, but a lot of celebrities deal with this where they're like, I can't go out in public anymore, so I never go out because I'm surrounded by people that just want something from me.
That's true.
And so
Tom Petty just locked himself in his house, basically.
Really?
I saw that. Yeah.
It gets overwhelming.
Because he hated people saying, "Oh, that's Tom Petty." So he just said at home, read. Anyway,
literally, you wouldn't want to go out. And so I think if I had to guess, the Ellen thing is probably, she's been famous for so long. Everywhere you go, people are staring at you. She's like, the one thing I ask is the people that work for me just don't look at me.
No, it's true.
You know,
true,
but also it's weird.
It is weird. It's weird. I can see it. It's weird. But yeah, no, that's a funny story. Once again, welcome to the TMZ Celebrity Gossip Podcast. We're going to have more for you. Just wait for the inside scoop on Emma Watson. It's coming up. You'll have to listen for 2 hours, but we'll get to it.
In other news, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds is actually a leprechaun. There we go. He's a mythic,
he is a billionaire.
He's a magical billionaire leprechaun.
You know, I'll talk about that for a second if you don't mind. Ryan Reynolds is a great case study of what people in YouTube are figuring out and athletes are figuring out. And that is that they are the brand themselves.
Yeah. So they don't need to be licensed to somebody. They can have their own brand.
100%. They can do it internally. So on the panel I spoke at 2 days ago with Silicon Slopes, one of the buddies I ended up making, his name is Nathan Wigglesworth, and he was a Wyden and Kennedy guy, big ad firm for like a decade, one of their best performers. And he ended up splitting off and doing his own thing, but he worked on the Nike and Jordan account. And he was so good and he built such rapport with them that when it came time for renewal, Jordan ended up not renewing with Wyden and Kennedy, but they went with him.
Oh boy.
So he's this like new company and he's got the Nike account basically. So it's huge. And he talked about how he's like working with Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, and they have figured out as athletes that when they have a big following, you'll see an athlete try and drop like a sweater or something. And it's like, oh, because I have 10 million followers on Instagram, this sweater is going to sell out. And it actually doesn't shake out that way. Most of the time, it's like you didn't correctly have a campaign built up behind it. There was a nuance to it that you missed. You think that your Instagram followers are the bellwether for whether or not you can sell inventory. And it's not just that. You can have, numbers and not have influence. And so a lot of people have figured out that the right way to do it is not to outsource your fame and leverage and give it to some brand where you have a 50% split or even worse sometimes. Oh yeah. People are figuring out I can 10%,
actually 5%.
Yeah, something appalling like that. 50 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But you can actually instead build up an internal team around the ethos of your brand, your presence as a creator, an athlete, a celebrity. And then you can roll out Mint Mobile. And I think he made a tequila or something.
Or Prime.
Prime is a great example.
Prime power drink, yeah.
Or Feastables. Feastables last year or the year before that, they did $600 million in revenue.
Amazing.
And they had no marketing. They didn't spend $1 on marketing. And so when I was there, we launched MrBeast Burger.
Yeah.
And that was the same thing. That painted a picture that taught me, hey, listen, if you do the legwork and you really build an audience and they came to you because you're like, oh, guaranteed I'm going to get entertained. This video is crazy.
Yeah.
Or fun or just captivating. Then they're there for free. You didn't charge them to watch the video. And so they just have an intrinsic appreciation for you. So by the time you fulfill on the promise, which is, I promise you, if you watch my video and give me your time, I'm going to reward it with an entertaining experience. I will think about your experience as the cold viewer.
Yeah.
If you do that enough, you have built absolute trust, or at least relatively absolute trust. Right? You watch a MrBeast video, there's no shot that you're going to, oh, this is going to suck. It's not.
Yeah.
You know that, right? You know that intrinsically. So you could say that same consideration applies when it comes to a product that they might deploy. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're putting out a product. It's probably going to have a really high quality bar. And so the burger is going to be good or the chocolate bar is going to be good. When people can do that, they don't need to rely on sales teams. They don't need to rely on these large marketing departments. Yeah. If you can accumulate influence in the form of I was objectively entertaining and I understood my audience, then when the time comes and you have a really good product you want to bring to market, you have mitigated, you've bypassed all of these other expenses.
Yeah. No, and also I think it's that element of trust that like they know you're selling them something directly and they won't want to harm their reputation. Whereas like that woman who's been hired to sell you a vacuum cleaner on the TV for 30 seconds, like you don't know anything about her, she's just there for the vacuum. Where if it's like, well, this is my favorite mop. From an influencer.
Is it?
Yeah, well, but they know they'll be, if it was a shoddy product, it would damage their long-term livelihood. So they're going for a long-term look rather than a short-term payoff.
Well said, yes.
So, and the medium allows for that. Another thing I've noticed as far as like marketing wise with social media is that it's allowed a lot more niche audiences to be marketed to. Whereas it used to be, well, we're going to run an ad on the Brady Bunch for Tide. And so, because everyone needs Tide and everybody watches the Brady Bunch. I mean, this is going back like the 60s,
no, I get
70s. But now you can be like, well, we made a pillow for women nursing twins or something like that. And we're going to give it to this nursing influencer with twins, with octuplets, we'll say.
Yeah.
And she's going to sell it, you know, and that product probably couldn't even exist without that form of marketing, because there'd be no way to connect the seller of a nursing pillow for twins to the buyer of it. Like, there's no way you can put on a shelf at Walmart because the shelf space would be too expensive. But an influencer with that sub demographic can push that product.
And then e-commerce can kind of do the heavy lifting. So you don't have to go and get some sort of buyer to get it on the shelves of a retail store.
No, exactly. Yeah. The influencer, even maybe she even invents it herself, you know, puts it in a warehouse and then ships it.
100%.
Has Amazon fulfillment or somebody ship it for her. So yeah, I think it's a very exciting world. And really we're just seeing the shift happen now. I mean, like it's dumped over, even talking about the growth of MrBeast's YouTube channel. I mean, to grow 100 million viewers in 1 year, that's probably unparalleled in the history of media.
It's never happened.
And then
they did, I think it was either 150 or 180 million the year after that. Like,
yeah. And the global reach, the fact that you can just upload a video and you're a TV channel in every country on the planet. I mean, there used to be there's a lot of regulations to get content on, a lot of censorship rules, a lot of things that you don't even have to deal with it.
I think that consideration is something reaching into companies that have been around for a long time. If they've built a successful business and they have revenues and they're moving inventory, there is the Dunning-Kruger effect that plays in here, which is the assumption that because you're great at one thing, you can assume you're probably great at everything that you do.
Yeah.
So you're going to meet a doctor and he's a very confident person because he has a sophistication in medical practice in his specific niche. But then he put him in front of a car and he's going to maybe say, oh, I can figure this out. But it's like, hey, there's a nuance here too, right? And so when business owners have built up an incredible firm and maybe they've got massive distribution, whatever it is, they're killing it. It's hard, I've noticed, to help people understand that this landscape has shifted violently, fundamentally, and irreversibly. And it really happened in, call it, the last 5.5 years. And so the landscape itself now warrants a completely set of different considerations that feel very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Why would you film on an iPhone when I have the budget to roll out a massive production set? And then if I spend $250K, I feel good about that investment. I feel like I'm going to get an incredible product. Sure. Until you realize that most people they would probably watch longer if it was filmed on an iPhone and this kind of funny, campy, a little bit staged, but organic moment was captured.
Yeah.
And that seems so counterintuitive. That's not how we've done it. You know, and I'm going to develop $100,000 website. It's like, no, like you can develop something more simplistic and campy because we're reverting to the mean. And I think there is this decay function in being overwhelmed with so much input. And so people are just scrambling for anything that doesn't feel like it's polished, it's overproduced. And so to get a big company to understand that, they're going to be the lagging indicators. Whereas the leading indicators are people that are okay breaking stuff, breaking rules.
Yeah.
I made this point yesterday.
Who aren't going to offend the 60-year-old head of marketing.
Yeah, but
because he's built power through a certain way. And now the media's landscape, he's like, but what I know exactly how to do the best 30-second ad spot.
Yeah, listen, you 25-year-old. I have done this for 35 years. I have $100 million in revenue directly correlated to my actions. How do you think you know better than I do?
Yeah,
and the reality is like, I don't know better than you do. We're talking about a new thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so there's a split between sales and marketing and brand and reputation. And those, they're complementary, but this brand and reputation piece has changed with content creation. By it existing and by people really starting to mastermind and understand all the complexity around it and finding the strategy, right? And there's a million, but by that existing, brand and reputation has developed its completely separate ethos. It's not just a logo. It's not just a color scheme and like your pet favorite images or whatever. It's this whole perception now. And if you drop a video and it doesn't do well, it doesn't actually necessarily affect the sales or products. And the example I'll give is a video I saw 2 days ago. So if you've been to Walmart before, in the back, they got all the TVs.
Yep.
And then the Sonys and whatever. The crappy brand is TCL, right? And you go, oh, I'm not going to buy that. I'm not a freshman in college. I can get a nice TV. And so that's the perception of it. So when you're the crappy TV at Walmart, you really don't have much to lose. So their marketing team, they probably got some unhinged Gen Z, intern. They created the craziest video I've ever seen. And it was like all of these transitions that are very trendy in Gen Z content. It's like a TV and it spins and then it becomes a refrigerator and all this other kind of really complex thing. And the narration is like, if you get this TV, you'll be rizzing up your friends. They're going to be skibbity toileting all over your lawn. And the Sigma moment will be uncanny. Yeah. And it's absurd. It's so cringy, right?
Yeah.
Millions of views. Millions. Tens of thousands of comments. And it's all Gen Z. And honestly, a spectrum of people going, this is so dumb. I'm going to buy one.
Oh, yeah.
So when I tell the 60-year-old head of marketing that, hey, this video has generated maybe $500,000 to $1 million in sales, and it's cringe, it's dumb, they're using words that are nonsense. It's so counterintuitive. It just rubs against the grain. It's the wrong thing. And so I guess my answer to really most questions people ask me now is like, there's really no rules, but you're going to know when you're over the target.
That's true. Well, and also I think it's a lot harder in a way. Like it was a nice world to be in. It's like, well, I do an ad with a woman with Tide, and then we run it on the Brady Bunch, and you just knew it would have a certain effect because you weren't competing with much else. Like that was it. And now it's hard you have to stand out. And there's so much stuff. It's hard to stand out and it's hard to be authentic. And honestly, how do you pay for authenticity? How do you do this? I mean, the whole world, I can tell you every network, when Oprah was on the air, every network wanted their own Oprah, but they couldn't find another Oprah. Right? So basically, and Oprah realized after a while, maybe she can set this, that she was the network. And so she started literally
the Oprah Network
and Oprah Magazine. So yeah, it's and I think she did that through authenticity, right? So, and again, she was the original influencer in a lot of ways. And there were just a few channels, but so anyway, her circulation and sales and how many things she's done. But now there's a lot more niche, less odd, more different, more audiences you can reach. I mean, and to me, I think about what's going on in the United States, but then I just think of like India or Argentina they probably have their own, their own ones, and they're in Spanish or
100%, 100,000 different sub niches relative to their cultures, right? Like you're well traveled. Yeah. Like literally half of these books are from about different cultures and nations. I'm pretty well traveled. And you go there to another country. Japan's a great example. You go to Japan, there are no trash cans.
Yeah.
That's a big part of Japanese culture because
that's really interesting. So you carry your garbage in your pocket.
Yes. And if you haven't been there, you're like, oh, whatever. And then you go there and you're like, I need to throw stuff away. You can't. There are no garbage cans, right? Because people have a politeness culture. They have a respect culture. And so within the confines of the respect culture, there's 1,000 idiosyncrasies. Yeah. And if you can capture 10 of them interestingly, and your Japanese is awesome, or you do something funny or maybe a little iconoclastic, you're going to blow up. Yeah. And those are like, how do you even navigate that? You just do it, you try it. Like the precursor, the approximate precursor, if there's an older generation trying to wrap their heads around this, is magazines. So, there were some niches in television. It was split up by channels. Oh, I want to watch news. It's this channel. I want to watch, entertainment or sports. Magazines had probably the price flexibility of having a low cost, all things considered. Mm-hmm. And so you could create a magazine for African-American women that are in love with tennis in the Midwest. Yeah, and it's like, that's a super niche category.
Or Texas Monthly, there you go.
Yeah. Texas, like the small, like, oh, this is my corner of the neighborhood magazine or whatever. Yeah. You can have an approximate version of that in video now. And if you do it right and you grow it correctly, you're going to have a ton of leverage, and you can deploy your own product, or you can leverage brand deals, and you can quit your 9 to 5. And we're still in the early days of this. We're still in the early days of video formatting. But I think specifically in podcasting, I think people in 2016, the reason that Trump got elected, at least in part, was because of social media.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You could say the same thing about Barack Obama in 2008. And that had never happened before. It was always these campy TV commercials and billboards and, your congressman, whoever, people are pushing all this stuff in front of you. Then the first time it happened, social media allowed an election to be influenced. And so we saw it in 2008, we saw it in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in 2024 was that podcasting influenced the election. And how did that happen? Well, Trump went on like 40 podcasts, huge shows.
Yeah.
And then the moments that were interesting got clipped and they got seen tens of billions of times. And every single mainstream narrative people are going to feel differently about this.
Well, this is politically agnostic discussion. We're just talking about the media format that
it's objective.
Worked. Yeah.
Like this is literally what happened, people that were told that this guy is, he's going to bring about the Fourth Reich and people are going to be drawn in, and rallied up in the streets or whatever. They were able to see now a 3-hour uninterrupted conversation and they go, well, I don't feel like a psychopath sounds like that. And I'm not saying I'm the best, perceiver of psychopaths, but I listened to him now talk for 12 hours straight with Theo Vaughn, with Joe Rogan, with Lex Friedman, with the Nelk boys. Like he's friends with Dana White. There are all of these things that you go, podcasting completely deconstructed almost 100-year-old industry and the unified narrative that this guy is going to be the end of the planet. And then all of that was completely bypassed, all the billions of dollars that were invested by just going on and sitting down in front of a nice little microphone and then just distributing it across podcast networks. It was the first time that podcasting swayed the overall outcome of the election. Yeah, no, in the election, you think of like slogans have always been so important in elections. I like Mike. This is Dwight Eisenhower back in the day, but it was a famous one. And then, of course, like Obama, hope, change. Oh, yeah. Hillary Clinton, forward. And even Make America Great Again. Yeah. But this time around, the slogan was less important. 2016, Make America Great Again, there was still a slogan. But now it's like the slogan went into the background and it's like you have to be an authentic person. Like, can you pull off a 3-hour podcast interview, which God tell you, very few people can do. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. And again, I don't know how you get to that point where you can. I mean, again, this is speaking as a documentary filmmaker and photographer it's just, you notice some people who just like can communicate themselves and again, are authentic, and then some who aren't. And there's really just not much going on there. Well, I think there's subject matter experts, whatever it is. Yeah. If you meet an obsessive person, they can talk about the thing they're obsessed about for hours. No, it's true. That thing could be the Kardashians. No, really. I mean, so I know that's true. They do have, everybody's got a thing that that really is them. I guess it's whether or not you're interested in it. Yeah, exactly. Which is where the niche is too interested in the Kardashians. But you could talk about documentaries for hours. You could talk about that's true. History. And I can talk about the Kardashians for hours, and I have because I dated a girl who is a real big Kardashian fan. Yeah. No, but I just found I just kept interested in it as kind of like a sociological event. Yeah. For her, they were like friends, but for me, it was interest. I was interested in her, and I was interested in knowing why she was interested in them. Yeah, you're like studying in like a clinical way. Like, clinical way. I study Swifties in the same way. I'm like, what is wrong with you? But I'm like looking at them through a petri dish. I'm like, oh, look at that. So why do you like this? Yes. Well, I went to the movie broadcast of the Taylor Swift concert. It's like 3 hours long. Oh wow. And it's funny because I'd heard Taylor Swift music before, but 3 hours, I was like, boy, girls think about relationships a lot. Like, I don't think it fully registered with me because, like, literally every song was about a relationship. And they all love it. And they'll know the words. No, they know the words. And I was like, yeah. And actually, kind of that makes sense. I don't know if you've had DTRs with girls. It's like, so where are we? I'm like, oh, are we talking about this? That's define the relationship outside of Utah. Oh, sorry, define the relationship. I'm like, okay, I don't. Oh. Well, and then I'll say like this, like 2-word sentence, like, is that really it? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Are we having fun? I mean, I just don't like, I don't know. I would like some parameters. I would like to be able to index the way that we are. And the trajectory going forward. But I can tell you, I can tell that there was a lot of thought before that question was asked. Like a lot, like days. So anyway, yeah, but Taylor Swift, you watch the Taylor Swift Eras tour. And, if you're like, oh, wow. Every song here is about a relationship, a breakup. I mean, and for 3 hours, amazing. But anyway, speaks to the brand, the power of like somebody crafting it. Yeah, she's do like country pop-up shows. It's so fun to see the rags to riches journey. And she's a great case study.
Oh, no.
It's leveraging their own brand.
No, fantastic. And maybe the best pop musician, marketer, distributor, and creator ever. And she, again, I think she kind of got that. Like she got the transition. Like, so she's old school media, right? Because she's been around for so long. But she knew like, how to create viral moments, basically turned herself into like the MrBeast for women.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
It is. And he's like, what would a woman really like to see? Oh, me dating a hot football player and wearing his jersey. That's the equivalent of buying every car at a car dealership for a girl in a way. Okay. I don't want to get in trouble, but clearly a lot that really resonated with a lot of people. And honestly, even like her, to me, it's talk about calculated, like being able to date high level celebrities over and over again, you know, and like these super gorgeous, amazing guys. I'm not saying that she doesn't want to do that, but there's such a turnover. It kind of feels scripted.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
you know, because I mean, the payoff, and especially for everybody involved, like, what's his name? Anyway, the football player, like he's made a fortune. Everyone around him's made a fortune. Is like, so, but at the core of it, supposedly is true love.
Yes.
True love goes through. Of course. This
not a PR team in sight.
No, we don't have staffs of 20 people telling us to show up when and where and to get the right coverage. Anyway, so moving on. Once again, Emma Watson. Scandalous news at the end of this podcast. Stay till the end. Okay.
Angelina Jolie.
I'm trying to think. Let's get all the major celebrities in there.
Someone got scammed for $800,000 because someone was deep faking Brad Pitt. Did you see that?
I saw that. Yeah. Again,
I'm scared it's going to happen to
guys.
Mom.
The way to see if an AI video is fake, I mean, and again, if you're in video, you know this, but you can communicate this to your grandma, to other people, because it might save them $800,000. Is the skin quality is too good, is too luminescent, it's just too perfect. Like that's kind of the core thing. And of course, if the world shifts or morphs or like doesn't react in a normal way, like it's in the little things that they can't get right now. I think in 6 months, they probably will be getting it right. But like, you just have to like the little things. If you stay super out, like if you look at it across the room, it'll probably look real, but just kind of look for the little things. Like look how the fingers move or something. That's how you can tell if it's fake. And
here's a better one. Yeah. If it's Brad Pitt, it's probably not real.
Brad Pitt doesn't want to date you. I'm sorry. Brad Pitt is busy. Busy. That's a joke. Anyway, a joke I have is that I've been catfished by a sea otter because the sea otter was just so cute. And then he asked for my bank for information. But anyway, but I do think, you know, I mean, there really are a lot of lonely people out there and they're like, oh, Brad Pitt likes me.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, they don't have that separation to realize like, well, is this going to actually happen? And again, it's a big, big world. And these hucksters, they only have to find one person, you know, and that's the sad thing about it.
I think that speaks to another thought, which is everyone goes, oh, if I start a channel right now, who's going to watch it? If I start a pod, who's going to listen? As if the entirety of all of the people on the planet have already been siloed away. They have their channels. They're never going to find another one.
Yeah.
But then you remember that there are a lot of lonely people and they are actually looking for real connection, real creators all the time. And that is actually the thing that carries them through their day, is that show that finally drops or that creator that finally does a makeup tutorial. And they live for that because there's maybe not much else going on. And I think anyone that listens to this podcast is probably to some degree a high performer, expects a lot out of their life. You run a really successful business. And so we are going to look at the world through our lens, the lens really we only have to look at it through. And so I think, oh, well, everyone must look at video the way I do, as an example. And then I go to Costco and I see all of these creatures, these people that are so different from me, that live these crazy lives. They have the least interesting conversations possible. And they are...
We love people.
I know I sound really critical, but I'm making an illustration. If you go to a McDonald's or a Walmart, you're going to see...
It's a big, big world. And there's all sorts of people living all sorts of lives. Yeah, that's for sure.
But the commonality is they all have that phone.
That's true.
And they all have YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. So when I deploy a piece of content or one of my clients' videos, they go out... They go, oh, yeah, they kind of can feel like, oh, when are we going to have that really big moment and get that 1 million view video? Well, listen, there are people looking for you. Maybe we just haven't found how to get in front of them yet, which is what we constantly calibrate and iterate. But the point is, you can think that everybody wants whatever it is you're delivering, or maybe you think that nobody does. I think most people are cynical and they go, I'm not going to start my show or my videos because who wants to see it? Because I haven't seen that performance. The reality is that there are so many people all using smartphones, all using the same apps, and they live wildly different lives from you and I, and their inputs are different and the things they like are different. You have no idea where your audience could come from, but there are hundreds of millions. There's 3.8 billion active users on Facebook every single week.
Crazy.
And that number is staggering. We have this problem with large numbers. It's hard to quantify in our heads, but that is so many freaking people. And all you have to do is like dig deep on who you are, what your superpowers are, take an inventory of what it is you're good at or you like, or you're a subject matter expert at, whether it be the Kardashians, and you can really make and carve out your own niche. And I think that that's just the point that I champion probably 20 times a day. Yeah. And so for one, I really admire you doing a show like this because it's like people know you in the space, in the industry, they like you. You have something that people would want to hear and listen. You have access to cool guests. And I think that that's going to be in 2025, a trend that the courageous will embrace more, is that you do have a message. People can, find you and they are interested in what it is you have to say. And even if you have to make 100 bad videos and bang your head against the wall for a while, if you're persistent, you will find the thing that people resonate with. And that is the opportunity that we sit in, even if there's AI videos that scam you out of $800,000.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's 100% true. And to me, the amazing thing is, and it's hard because the numbers are so huge, is the free instant distribution. I mean, that's worth so much. I mean, pre-internet days, like you had to make DVDs and you could print like 1,000 copies of DVDs for maybe $600 and you had to hand them out to people and they store them and they would have to put them in a DVD player to watch it and sit down and press this. But now it's just they swipe up on TikTok and they're seeing your video or they're not seeing your video. Yeah. And I think in a way that's what scares people to get involved to a degree is it's just like, oh, nobody's looking at my video. It's not distribution. I mean, it's there. Like MrBeast has the exact same distribution I have, but there's a lot of things going into it.
Yeah, that's a great point though.
But yeah. And I don't know, but it's true. I do think like, not everybody has a personality for him, just unfortunately. But
Lex Friedman's a good example of someone that has kind of a white bread dull.
He is actually he's interesting.
He's got this dry.
He would never be in broadcast. Like if he auditioned for any news service or anything, he would be thrown out in the first round, maybe even as soon as he walked in the door. And he's one of the biggest broadcast media in the world.
The following is a conversation with Mark Zuckerberg. It's just like he's this PhD toting
every rule
AI guy at MIT, and he's so dull. He just interviewed Zelensky. He's had Elon Musk on 4 times.
He's got tons of viewers.
And so he's a subject matter expert delivering it in this dry Russian way, but people love him. Do you know why? Because he's goofy and he lets you see his goofiness a little bit.
Well, and he's authentic. He is being the way he is. If he tried to if he took a course in public speaking or in acting to be like, well, don't be so wooden, don't be so dynamic, it would be worse because he would be who he's not. He's being somebody who's not.
And there's a magic in that.
It is. And his questions are good. They're precise. They're insightful. So he does a good job on that front. But as far as if you were to major in broadcast journalism, he would receive an F. But again, that shows the shift in the medium. And something I like to think about, when radio used to be TV. People would watch, The Lone Ranger was a radio show. And then when TV first happened, they were kind of like, well, we'll just take our radio news guy and stick a camera in front of him. But it didn't work.
It didn't work.
We needed a completely different person. And then we're kind of going through that shift now, whereas all of a sudden, we don't need a Tom Brokaw. You look at any of the major podcasters, none of them are a Tom Brokaw kind of guy. They're not like this perfectly coiffed person who's really good looking. You would not see any of them on 60 Minutes ever interviewing somebody.
And the irony too is you see the Don Lemons that leave big stations and then they try and podcast. And it doesn't work because they're trying to do the same thing that they were doing on broadcast media. Oh, yeah. And it's it doesn't fold. Podcasting is authenticity. That's the first thing we talked about today. Yeah. And so you'll see these guys completely fold under the pressure because the spotlight is you're naked and laid bare in front of people if you're doing it right. And that's how you really grow is you let people in and see you. And we have this tendency, like you said, there's a veneer, there's kind of this performative layer that we want to put to separate us between them and actually being seen. But that's the power of the medium.
Yeah.
And so it's like the more willing you are, and I talk about this with my clients all the time, the more you're willing to be as real as possible and flub a thing or go on a random tangent about how much you love this type of coat hanger. Like I love trash cans. I'll talk about trash cans because I have this thing about trash cans. I think it's like so satisfying. And there's something like super interesting in that. And you're going to see as we move forward that it's an archaic medium at this point. Like the only people that are watching TV are people that have watched TV for 40 years.
Oh gosh, the core demographic for a lot of these cable channels is in the tens of thousands.
It's really sad.
It's amazing. It's like, yeah. And then the core demographic would be people like 15 to 55 or 45, depending where you cut it. And then, but they'll have like 1 million viewers, but 40,000 of them will be within that age group, meaning everybody else, like all 900,000 other people, are over the age of 55. And the reason why that is because advertisers don't want to advertise to people that old because they're kind of set in their ways, basically. They're not going to switch laundry detergent brands or anything.
That's interesting.
So, so it's authenticity. Katie Couric in particular, like I've watched some of her videos and she's got shockingly few subscribers.
Who's that?
Katie Couric is she was host of the Today Show.
Oh.
She was a really, really big broadcast journalist. I can't remember all the things in it, but she was like a name brand in the aughts and the 90s. Like huge. In fact, like when Marissa Mayer took over Yahoo, her first move was to hire Katie Couric to come do broadcast media for Yahoo. So yeah, like she's huge. She's really important, but her views are in the tens of thousands to the hundreds of thousands ranging.
Yeah, but on paper in a board meeting, you pitch that and people are like, oh, that's a great idea. That's the perfect fit.
But this is Katie Couric though. I mean, that's the difference. I mean, that's still a lot of people. I mean, again, we're talking about these numbers. I mean, we can't even comprehend 300 million.
That's a fair point.
But like, I mean, even like, you just think like, oh, well, only 10,000 people watch my video or only 1,000 people. Like put that many people in like a room and think how much work it would be to get them into that room. 1,000 people is a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. I mean, like a high school basketball stadium for a good high school be around 2,000 people. So you just spoke to a high school basketball stadium worth of people. A college Division I football team will be 65,000 people. So if you get 60, I mean, that's bananas. So then, and
you convert 2% of that to your product. Hello.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Just a fraction and 300 million. That is a country. That is a mega country. That is a continent worth of people. That's like the population of Europe. And
if they love you and you've got something to sell, congratulations. You don't need a sales department.
No, you don't. I mean, when you can convert like, in fact, there's some influencers I started following. They're local and they just started. And they basically all they do is they run up Provo Canyon. And they wear running shorts like 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile as they do their run down Provo Canyon into Provo. And now they've started running marathons. Like they just finished the Disney marathon. They dressed kind of Disney princessy and stuff. And they just sold 50,000 sweatshirts.
No
like
way.
An insane amount of sweatshirts.
In Provo.
Yeah, and they have each one of them has 100,000 to 150,000 followers. There's 3 of them, and they're called like I can't remember, like the Running Crew or something. I wish I could remember their name, but they're not huge. They're not MrBeast. When you think about it, though, 150,000 people. That's the size of a mid-sized city.
Yeah,
that's like Indianapolis, and they watch them do their daily run every day, and then they put their saying on a sweatshirt and 50,000 people buy it out of the total 400,000 people are following them. So again, these numbers, you don't, especially, I mean, you think if you're a plumbing company or something, they'll probably be the last to get onto this. But if
they're smart, they won't be though.
They won't be. They'll get on it.
And they're the ones that listen to it. Truck drivers listen to it. Blue collar workers, 2A community, they all consume podcasts. And so it really is just a matter of time of them getting that own internal courage and being like, oh, I'm just going to do whatever that thing I do anyways, and I might try and film it.
No, marketing. In fact, a guy I interviewed just a couple of episodes ago, that he's a big wildlife photographer / hunter. And I was like, dude, you should do a hunting wildlife photography video influencer. You're an interesting person. You should do it. And I actually had a former employee in my business who, I won't say his name, but he wasn't a great employee, to be quite frank. But he moved to a rural community and he started posting videos of himself doing fence maintenance on his like he didn't have a ranch or anything. You know, his wife is a nurse.
A plot of land, fence repairs in rural
middle nowhere Utah, and he's got 90,000 followers. Again, that is like the rolling tide. You know, that makes him like the University of Alabama, and he does fence repairs, and his wife's a nurse, and he's in his late 50s.
Wow.
You know, I mean, again, it's like you just don't know where the niche is going to be, and who to guess there'd be an audience for doing fence repairs in rural Utah.
I think this has become the Rorschach test of flexibility, because this is so, it changes every single day. In fact, I'll get clients that will have left a previous agency before they start working with us, and they'll tell us about what they were doing, what the agency was doing for them. Some of them are using strategies from 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey man, the cutting edge of that is just, it feels miles away now. But what's worse is I get a lot of, small to medium sized businesses, and their firm they were outsourcing to was running strategies from 3 years ago or 5 years ago. And in the grand scheme of things, if this was the 2000s and someone was saying, oh, we're running a playbook from 1996 or 98, you'd be like, oh, okay, probably still works.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty reasonable to assume, because the sheer velocity that this information river moves at, it wasn't what it, today it's different than what it was then.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's so much, like, that's why kids, like iPad kids, are so different. There are so many more inputs that happen through the eyes, through the ears. Mm-hmm. The brain gets stimulated and develops in a really specific way where the neuroplasticity results in like a different species of human.
Yeah.
And that's what's really hard to convey. So it's like everybody does have their phones, and an older generation, the 60-year-old, CMO at the company, he and his wife are probably playing Candy Crush and checking Facebook, and they have a use case for it. They have their kind of patterns that they use in the phone. They know how to use it. They FaceTime. They're technologically savvy, but their use case does not speak to the bigger picture that's going on, the way that these trends are developing. And now if you plant, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And so when you can
better late than never.
Better late than never. Yeah. And honestly, this thing we have not hit critical mass yet. People thought that about YouTube in 2012. When Jimmy was starting his YouTube channel, they're like, oh no, there's all these case studies. It's done. We're putting we've seen all the channels blow up. And so YouTube, everyone's figured it out. Don't start a channel now. Well, can you imagine if you had started a YouTube channel in 2012 and you had grinded it out and made it happen, flexibly pivoted if your angle wasn't working and said, okay, great, I'll try something else. And you were just consistent and gritty. Imagine if you'd started it in 2018. You have, huge streamers like iShowSpeed and Kai Cenat that are like Gen Z icons that are closing $10 million a live stream. And they started in 2021.
Yeah.
So it's like, this illustrates, the fact that all of these things are moving faster than ever. And so it behooves us to grab a corner of it, plant our flag, and be willing to be flexible. And so, like I said, it's like the more that people are willing to go, I don't know what's going on, which is probably the first thing they have to reconcile, say, I don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
What am I doing? I'm shedding a layer of my identity as like, I'm the go-to expert. Well, for sure. But also the circumstances have changed. And now there are new classes of expertise. So whereas before branding would probably fall under the umbrella of marketing, it's totally bifurcated now. Branding and content creation and videos, that's your reputation. And you have to look at that completely differently. Most people use Google Ads as a component of their business process. Yeah. You go to the toll booth of Google Ads, you pay them, you get a lead. That lead can turn into a sale. That sale is trackable. You can architect KPIs around it. And marketers and founders and CFOs, they like that. They like that they can see it and measure it. What we're talking about is this abstract, qualitative thing that turns random Provoites that run down Provo canyons into people selling 50,000 units. There's no case study.
And they're like 21-year-old girls. I mean,
Yeah. So it's like, how do you reconcile that? Yeah. How do you put that in a case study? You're like, so it's going to happen all over the place. The point is not that you missed the window. The point is that you're not really going to know how it's going to work, but you've got to figure out your superpower, test and iterate, and then have the courage to just put yourself out there. Or if you don't want to be the face of it, have somebody else. If you run a company and you say, oh, I'm dry as paper, well, then get an interesting person in there. Get a Gen Z intern, for crying out loud.
I got to tell you, though, if you do that, they will have all the power, though. they will have power on you because they will have the relationship with your clients.
That's a good point too. And that's what athletes and celebrities understood.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like there's a sentiment like with players in the NBA where they know that even
they should
though
just have their own shoe. Why do they need Nike?
Right. Well, and that's the distribution. They handle all the manufacturing.
That's true. Yeah,
right?
I know.
But for the most part, they feel as though they work for the NBA. They feel like they have a job.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I have a job. I feel like I have a company.
Yeah.
But like you can be an NBA superstar and still be like, yeah, like I report to the boss or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when you can get enough sufficient leverage, like you said, they're probably going to go and take some courage and take that journey into the unknown. Mm-hmm. And that's happening more and more and more. And so the more you can figure out how to accumulate leverage in an audience, oh, well, I need a case study. I need a blueprint. Sorry, there really aren't any. There are case studies, but there are no blueprints. So you really have to take pieces of everybody else and then find your own path. And that's really hard and abstract and kind of hand wavy to say, but like, dude, that's just the way it is right now.
Yeah. My view is I think people misgauged media, like fundamentally from the Hollywood studios and the internet companies, is that I view that streaming is actually replacing cinema or like the movie going experience. It's the high quality, high production, $100 million budget stuff. And that's a hot take. Yeah. But that's more narrow. So just movie going, like high end stuff. And cable TV, which is the overwhelming amount of money studios make is from cable TV, is being replaced by social media. When they thought streaming services like Netflix was going to take cable TV too. And so really Netflix and these players will probably be more niche than anybody expected. And social media will eat and go up market and get all of cable TV, which is kind of like, you know, your guilty pleasure, your Kardashians. I mean, all these things that were kind of their bread and butter are done better on social media.
Yeah.
Like the Kardashians is better on, I mean, the equivalent, like influencers, you think Kardashians were like cable TV influencers. And now you can have your own influencer. You can have, you know, like the real lives of Atlanta or whatever. Now you can have an Atlanta, Nashville, a Chattanooga, Tennessee influencer. I mean, you can just have the Real Housewives of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll have an accent like you and they'll have similar problems to you and you can connect with them better than some people in Los Angeles.
We're working with a client right now and we're starting to develop a show. They are the premier luxury real estate company in Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. And we took inventory of their whole company and the people that work with them, you know, from their agents to, you know, staff and office. And we just did a full inventory of like, who's the most interesting people on your team. And we figured out how to create a show out of their day to day. And most of our clients are like podcasts. That's really what we prefer because it's a straightforward, repeatable format that doesn't require complex camera angles, lighting, all this other stuff, audio considerations. This is a very ideal format for being able to produce a show because you don't have to worry about all those variables. But in this case, we figured that it was actually a better format for them was to do a show and take on all those complexities. And they're going to be able to tap into people that love Austin, Texas, people that love luxury real estate, and people that just like watching a husband and wife crush it in a business capacity, and people that like a funny, entertaining couple. And so it's like they figured out like 4 or 5 really key components, and that's led to them, you know, developing the show. And it's like, it's going to crush. And those are the same. So
they're basically making a reality TV show to market their company.
Yeah.
See, and again, because they have instant distribution, they only have the cost of production. And so they're making a Real Housewives, or I guess there probably won't be as much scandal, I'm guessing.
I hope. I don't think so. They're super cool.
Yeah, I know. But no, it's, they're making their own TV show. And that's a great thing. In fact, speaking of like kind of more like blue collar jobs, there's an influencer here called Matt's Off-Road Recovery. He's in Hurricane, Utah. Daryl knows how I said that. Hurricane, not hurricane.
He's a real Utah.
He's a real Utah. But anyway.
Daryl helped blow them up.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. He did Daryl Eve's channel Jumpstart. Shout out Daryl. He's one of the people that got me into MrBeast. Love that guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he helped them develop like product lines. And so I think they have like towing cables, right? That they sell or something.
Yeah. Yankum Road. So yeah. And they also, but anyway, he was a tow truck driver and he would recover stuck vehicles in the sand in rural southern Utah. And he's got 2 million followers or something. And he's just really well loved. And he has an event. He's like a social media epicenter in a lot of ways for kind of even that whole market of kind of off-road social media. But yeah, and it's really interesting. I mean, I've watched it myself. I enjoy it, even though I don't actually off-road that much. But it's just interesting to see how they solve a problem and get people out of trouble. It's like kind of just satisfying.
Yeah.
I think that makes me think I should do off-roading because there'd be somebody to save me if I got stuck.
Well, you would never assume that would be a good channel.
No, you wouldn't.
It's weird.
It probably surprised nobody more than himself.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a tow truck driver and I just started filming myself doing my job and then everyone wanted to watch it. Go figure.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the point we keep landing on. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But the point is to start doing some sense making.
Yeah.
You know? And it's, what are you into? Oh, I love drywall. Really? Well, how much do you love drywall? I talk to other drywall guys and I can talk circles around them. Okay, now you got something.
And a lot of people like drywall. And honestly, there's a lot of people's lives is drywall.
You know what? We all got drywall.
Yeah, seriously. And we all have drywall problems.
Yeah.
We've all had to do a patch here and there. Every homeowner gotten some mud and patched it up.
100%. You can be the lawn guy. You can be the guy that does bookcases. There's a thing that everybody kind of has. And if they don't, what if you're entertaining and you're the best IKEA furniture assembly guy ever?
I'd watch that channel.
You know?
I'd watch a channel of two angry people assembling IKEA furniture.
And they're trying to pronounce the names.
A couple. I want to see like the odd couple doing it.
Okay, guys, today we're dealing with the Fuznerka.
Or the other side. Yeah, no, but it's a drama. I mean, as you know, there is a lot of drama in assembling IKEA furniture.
Oh man, so, that's the stress test of any relationship.
Yeah,
go on a vacation out of country and then assemble IKEA furniture.
I'm having flashbacks with various friends as helping them assemble their IKEA furniture because you're confronted with your mechanical capabilities and cooperative abilities.
I felt really capable until like 2 minutes ago.
And I thought I could do everything, but this assembling an IKEA drawer in particular, like if you get a desk, that's easy, but a desk with drawers, that's hard.
And there's no words.
No,
there's just pictures.
Like, and then you do like you put one part in the wrong order. Like, shoot, I have to disassemble this, and I don't think it's really designed to be disassembled because the screws won't go in as well the second time.
Yeah, a friend of mine, we assembled a what do you call it, dresser, just for and we assembled the whole thing backwards, and we were 2 hours deep into it, and the wrong side was facing out where all the drawers slide in. 2 hours into it, and we dinged it up because we were like, oh, this is going in the back. And it was absolutely not going in the back. It was the front side. It had it all backwards. So now to this day, my dresser has horrific hammer dents in the front of it. And it's like a nice white dresser.
Oh, you didn't disassemble and read it? You just kind of made it work?
At that point, we were so far and we'd already drilled the sides. It was too far to go backwards. So it works, but it's, thanks IKEA.
No, but that's the thing. I mean, particularly, again, IKEA drawers. Each drawer will increase the complexity of an IKEA project by 30%. So if you're doing a dresser, 5 drawers is crazy complicated. Whereas a desk, a desk would be 10% hard. 5 drawers would be 200% hard. It's so hard because you also have to do them all right.
Yeah, they have washers.
And it's not
little cork things.
Yeah, there's the wheels and stuff. Anyway, well, I don't know. Is there anything else you feel like we've left out or do you want to talk about? But I think it's been really great, really informative. Again, hold on for the Emma Watts info. I will have it at the very end.
Oh, wait till I leave.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, I think that was really good. I mean, we discussed where we are. I loved hearing your stories about MrBeast and the kind of insight on how to make that. In a way, I think he's kind of like a David Copperfield guy, but rather than illusion, he's doing fantastical reality.
Yeah.
Because what does it look like to buy all of a Walmart? But that's kind of he's making the inventory disappear, but he's just buying it. But that's something we've always wanted to see. Same way with David Copperfield, we'd always want to see a boat disappear. How? Yeah. But
we were supposed to have David Blaine when we buried Jimmy alive, and he had a conflict.
Oh, really?
But yeah, no, he had a soft commit at the time. Oh shoot, David Blaine's coming through.
Well, there you go. That feels kind of magician-esque to bury yourself alive.
It was nuts.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So then again, that's legitimately dangerous. If you were to get insurance for that shoot, did you guys get insurance for that shoot?
Oh yeah, everything was insured. We had security teams on standby.
Oh really?
Medical staff on site. 24/7. We had surveillance on him that didn't even make the footage. He was on EKGs, oxygen, measuring everything.
So, hey, kids, don't do that at home.
Don't do that. You don't have the budget for it.
You don't have the budget for it. No, sirree. But I think we discussed a lot of great things. And as for the news on Emma Watson, she is getting older. She is older. just like all of us. She's just like you. She's no different. She's older. In fact, she's pretty much middle-aged now, even though she looks young in the movies.
Don't say that.
No, sorry. Just break the illusion. She's getting older, just like you and just like everybody you knew in high school. So sorry. Seize the day.
Is anyone else bummed?
Anyway. Okay. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks for coming, Brady.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Bye.